Hi guys, this is Hannah from Hannah B Flute. I am going to talk to you guys today about the best piccolo music for beginners. Now, a lot of people have mixed opinions about the piccolo. Some people, like myself, love it. Others hate it. Others may not care. I feel like that last one is not super common. I feel like you either love it or you hate it. But for a lot of us flute players, it is a necessity whether you like it or not, especially if you want to go to college for music, if you want to have a music career. As a flute player, you pretty much have to play the piccolo. You may be able to get away with playing it not that often, but if you become a private teacher and you get a lot of high school students who they're interested in going to college for music, you should be the one probably to introduce them to the piccolo. If you want to become a college flute professor, you'll also need to introduce your students to the piccolo. Even as a player, think about the orchestra. There are 3 flute spots. There's first flute, second flute, and third flute / piccolo. So that already knocks you out of 1 if you don't play the piccolo. But then there are also plenty of pieces like Dvorak 9 where there is only flute 1 and a flute 2 / piccolo. So if you don't play piccolo, that also knocks you out of that. So it's 1 chance, and orchestras are already competitive enough, so you really should give yourself the best chance of getting into an orchestra if that's what your career goals are. But even then, the piccolo is just fun. You get to play a lot of cool parts on it. You get to be a soloist without necessarily being a soloist or being the best player in your ensemble. So that's a few reasons why you should play the piccolo, but you need to have the best music. I think that if you force yourself to play something really high pitched and or really fast, or something that takes way too much air, as a beginner, even if you have those flute fundamentals, it's still going to be not the best result because you are forcing yourself, you're overworking yourself, and that could give you a bad impression of the piccolo even if you don't feel either way about it before starting. But if you start with some of the books and pieces that I'm going to share with you guys today, then you'll have a better chance of liking the piccolo. You can take things slowly and play music that you're comfortable with. And then, even if you don't become a piccolo specialist, you won't moan every time you have to play it. So, the first one I'm going to show you, first book, is The Elementary Method, Rubank. Good old Rubank. Of course, it's for flute, but then you can also see it says or piccolo. So this book, I think the other ones are just for flute because I think they go down to low C or low C sharp. This one is for flute and piccolo. So it's good if you're just coming back to the flute after years and you also want to learn the piccolo. Personally, I wouldn't recommend learning the piccolo without learning the flute first, just because it is a lot harder. The airstream is smaller, not tighter, smaller. Tighter sounds stressful, but yeah, the Rubank, it starts off with your whole notes and your half notes, and starts with G, A, B, and C. Slowly progresses. It's also, the progression is nice, especially if you're teaching yourself. If you do have some flute playing skills, you may be able to go a lot quicker with it. But yeah, so I think this is a good book. It's also pretty affordable. It's like less than $10 on Amazon. So you really can't go wrong with it, even if this isn't your main piccolo book. And if you have learned the flute, you may already have it, so you may not even have to spend $10. So the next one is a book specifically for the piccolo called the Medsante Method by Nicola Medsante. He's an Italian piccolo player, and he compiled a bunch of different exercises. I like that this is spiral bound because it is a slightly thicker book. So you have 3 parts. One is on sound. So on the back of the book, he describes it. a complete course in itself, providing a wide spectrum of studies, discussions, checkpoints, repertoire melodies in 12 transpositions, tone, intonation, and more. The second part is on scales and exercises, so it's equally thorough and invaluable in presenting these cornerstones of technique perfectly suited to the piccolo. And then the third part is melodies, opera, and lieder. So it provides enriching opportunity to bring these technical lessons to practical application and study in the greatest cantabile studies through the highlights of vocal repertoire. So you get to work through all of these. I haven't used this book a ton, but I do use a lot of the sound, like preliminary exercises. They have checkpoints in the sound section on support, larynx, and embouchure. So you can make sure that you get the best sound possible on your piccolo. The next one, the first piccolo book that I really got into, a piccolo specific book, was Trevor Y. and Patricia Morris, practice book for the piccolo. If you play the flute, you probably have played or known somebody who's played out of the practice books for the flute. So it's similar in that Trevor Y. developed it, and it looks similar to the older omnibus flute edition, but it does not have the fundamentals like tone, technique, scales, breathing, and stuff like that. It has a few like introductory exercises, covers like the flute versus the piccolo, but then the majority of it is orchestral excerpts. So from symphonies and concertos, other famous works. And then in the back there is some informative stuff on like different piccolo music, so like other pieces you can play, how to buy a piccolo, I think is in here. Maybe not. But yeah, just a lot of music, and again, spiral bound because it is a thicker book. I think the like older ones, so if you have a used copy or you buy a used copy, it may not be spiral bound, but yeah, it's a great resource either way. Next, also from Patricia Morris, but not Trevor Y., is the Piccolo Study Book. So this is just like couple warm-up exercises, and then a lot of etudes from different composers like Furstenau, Anderson, Bem, Kohler, covering the things like tone, articulation. So this is a good book. It's obviously thinner, so no spiral binding, but it's great if you want some etudes that are adapted for the piccolo, so that don't have a ton of low C's or C sharps or really high notes. Then getting into actual repertoire, we have David Loeb's Six Preludes, Volume 1, Studies on East Asian Pipes. So I performed this almost 2 years ago as my first master's recital, one of the pieces on there. And it just has 6 preludes in here, as you can see. What is nice about this is that, well, one, it's unaccompanied, so you don't have to worry about finding a piano player. And then each of the preludes don't go super high. There's just one. The fourth one goes up to a high B, but it only hits that note once. The rest don't go any higher than like B flat or D, just above the staff. So it's pretty good. There are some more technical ones, some more like lyrical ones. So you can really explore a lot with this. It is, I will say, kind of potentially weird for us Western musicians because some of them don't have bar lines. However, you can still find the phrases. You can listen to recordings of it. You can, do some score study and see where like the rests are and see where the longer notes are to help influence your phrasing. And then another unaccompanied set of pieces, but for the flute that you can also play on the piccolo, is the Telemann Fantasies. So these are Baroque, which means they don't go super high, they also don't go super low, so they are perfect piccolo range. Of course, there are 12. However, if you're going to use these for flute or piccolo or both, be careful with the addition you get, because some editors will add in a lot of markings that maybe the composer did not intend to have. So I got the Henley edition, but Barenreiter is also good because both of them focus a lot on performance practice. So they have text editions, and yeah, so you can go through these one by one. You could pick your favorite, and worst case scenario, if you happen to not like piccolo, you can play them on the flute, and they're unaccompanied as well, so you don't need to find a piano player to work on them. The last piece, I should say, is not really one piece, but it's whatever you're working on the flute. So of course, a lot of flute music does have, that low C, low B that the piccolo can't play. However, a lot of times you can leave those notes out. You can pop them up the octave. You can adapt it yourself to play on the piccolo, and then, maybe you're practicing the flute one day and you have an extra 5 minutes before you need to do whatever. So you can pull out your piccolo and just run through it on piccolo. Of course, be careful with that. You don't want to play the Prokofiev sonata and on the piccolo when you've only been playing the piccolo for a few days, because that's a much more difficult piece. But, if you pull out your Telemann Fantasies, or, I don't know, any other Baroque piece, like a Bach, like the Polonaise and Bodenary, that's a bit technical, but it's, the range isn't as crazy. Or, if you're looking for music for the flute and the piccolo, I have a volume collection of selected famous solos, originally written for piano, voice, other instruments, that I arranged for the flute. So there's Fur-Elise, Dona Nobis Pacem, Danse Macabre, Erlkönig, Habanera, a couple others that Solveig Song, and one more that I'm not thinking of right now. But those are all good. Maybe not the Fur-Elise, but a lot of the rest are not too difficult technically, and so you can play them on flute and on the piccolo. So I will link those and all of the books that I showed you in the description down below, so that you can easily purchase them and use them on your piccolo journey. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if you found it helpful, if you have any more questions. And then, of course, head to my website to buy selected famous solos, or to buy any of the other stuff I mentioned. And if you like this, please give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later.